It is a quiet morning as students take their seats to begin a new day of learning. Teachers are taking out their plans for the day. A janitor quietly mops the lunchroom floor. This began as any normal day at any normal typical school. But as we Americans unfortunately know, for the schools of Columbine, Stony Brook, Virginia Tech, and many others, this is a day and place that should have been a place of safety that turned into a day of horror, tragedy, and death. Now, these are just a few of hundreds of tragic school shootings that have occurred on school grounds. And yet these tragic acts of violence continue to happen. But what is the solution? Many states have already taken action, but it is time for all states to take a stand to help prevent these senseless acts of violence. My call to action is that all teachers be trained and be required to carry a firearm with them at all times. Now, this is a different take than that of many others when it comes to school shootings. The initial take for many is that we just ban guns outright altogether. Now, this is the thought process of that if there aren't legal guns to purchase, then the senseless acts and these tragedies will cease to continue. But unfortunately, this just isn't the answer. This really only allows for criminals to still get their hands on illegal guns while preventing, law-abiding citizens from obtaining legal guns. And as we saw in the horrific Boston bombings, a gun isn't needed to cause death and mayhem. Now, this is why I propose all teachers be required to carry a firearm. Now, this isn't a brand new idea. After the tragedies of Stony Brook, 33 states have allowed teachers to carry a concealed weapon onto the school grounds. But there are definitely more steps that need to be taken than just to say a teacher who has never handled a gun is now being required to handle a firearm. And this is where the opposition also jumps in, saying that these teachers not only are unequipped to handle a firearm, but by bringing guns in, that these teachers aren't prepared to have the guns around the kids, and that it's just bringing an unnecessary risk into the schools. Now, part of my call to action proposes that teachers go through an additional step of training when they do obtain their gun and begin teaching at the school. This includes training on how to fire the firearm, handling the firearm, proper gun safety, gun storage, so that when the gun is brought onto the campus, it isn't an additional hazard to the kids. And I would also propose that the teachers are required to, and I guess as part of it being mandated, that it is notified that teachers are armed at the schools. Currently, there is no law that states that a teacher has to report to school administration or to the students or the students' parents that they are carrying a concealed weapon. Now, I believe having these trained teachers and more awareness will help and convince the public this measure will make their children safer. Now, after the Stony Brook tragedy, a Gallup poll produced that 53% of Americans would be in favor of teachers carrying guns. Now, the teachers on the school grounds, that's a little bit different case, as they're not quite as convinced, with most polls showing that it's about 20% in favor of teachers carrying the concealed weapons. But there are teachers who do agree. An NBC News investigative report interviewed Casey Hansen, a teacher in Utah. Ms. Hansen is one of many teachers in Utah who have taken advantage of the new laws and does carry a concealed weapon to school. And she does feel the rules are safe and they are a safety precaution for the students. Now, says Hansen, quote, "I want to protect my students. I'm going to stand in front of a bullet for any student that is in my protection, and so I want another option to defend us." And that really is the point of teachers carrying firearms. It is another line of defense for the students, and it also acts as a deterrent. If a potential intruder knows that each teacher is carrying a firearm, this will help prevent these individuals from carrying out their acts of crime. we can look to the concealed carry laws and the facts of concealed carry laws when it comes to private citizens to see that crime is prevented when criminals do know that individuals are armed. Um, in the state of Texas, which did enact a concealed carry law, they saw crimes plummet after the law was enacted. Um, in the first year after allowing concealed carry, they saw murder rates fall 50% below the national rate. And by the second year, they saw rape rates fall by 500%. And for those who want to see a direct correlation as far as teachers with guns, we could look no further than Miss Hansen and the state of Utah. Since Utah began allowing teachers to carry guns over 10 years ago, there has not been a single shooting in a kindergarten through 12th grade school. So needless to say, in this violent world we live in, preventing all school violence is impossible. But we can take steps. We can have teachers trained in firearm safety and know how to handle a gun, and so that when they are equipped with a gun, that they're as safe as possible. And we can also take advantage of speaking with our children about gun, having them be more aware. And even if this measure is able to prevent just one school shooting, it is more than worth it. We need to take a stand against violence, not sit back and wait. The amount of school shootings continue to increase, so it is time for us to do something outside of the box, for the safety of the students and the faculty alike. Now, as school district superintendent David Thewa out of Texas stated, in 1990 we created gun-free zones for schools. And that we aimed mostly at gangs. But we forget that bad guys couldn't care less about the law. So we just left scores of kids across the country defenseless against these people. There's a bias against firearms in general and the feeling that guns in schools don't mix, but it's something we need to consider to protect our kids. Thank you.